Hey everyone, and welcome back to Time Shifters Podcast. We're here in studio. This is Christopher. I'm here with Matt.
Hey.
How you been, Matt? It's been kind of a crazy couple weeks.
Yeah, a lot has happened. I was just kind of like looking through my Twitter to just be like, what are some news things I should pick? I was like, oh, wow, everything happened in the last 2 weeks. So we'll talk about a few of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. And if you haven't already, let you know that you can subscribe through many different avenues. You, of course, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio. We are on Spotify. And you can join a lot of discussions and stuff over on our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com and search for the Time Shifters Podcast. I think I mentioned last episode that we had a YouTube page, which wasn't doing much. And I'm trying to get some content up there, including some episodes, just some recent and past episodes that we've done, as well as there's a few interviews, both video and just audio. Just easy way that if you want to maybe introduce someone to the podcast, YouTube's a lot easier to explain than trying to get them to, okay, you open up the podcast app and then you have to
search and subscribe.
Yeah.
Download if you want to take it in the car.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube just seems to be an easier kind of go-to than trying to get people to go into honestly, you could go to the website and listen too, but YouTube is just, everyone knows YouTube. So I thought, it couldn't hurt. What the heck? And it's kind of an easy way to get, like I was saying, some older content too. Some of the interviews I've done, both audio, phone interviews or video interviews in person, and a way to kind of get those out there and everything. So definitely check that out. Just search for Time Shifters on YouTube, and I think you'll find us. Yeah, I think that about covers Twitter. I should mention Twitter. Yeah, you can.
That's where I am.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Matt's definitely more of the Twitter person. I'm more on Facebook. He's definitely more Twitter. But I am there, and you can follow me at Time Shifters Pod. And Matt here's actually got a couple of things. You can even mention your other show if you want.
Sure. You can find my main Twitter at Movies at the Mat, and then the other podcast is Season 14 Time for a Podcast, and you can find that on Twitter at Season 14 Podcast. It's all about the show Supernatural. We're starting it from the beginning with a newbie.
Yep, and we talked a lot about it on our last episode, so just go back one episode and hear all about it right there. And as soon as he gets a promo, we'll start playing that in the show as well.
We recorded it, just have to get everybody's audio and sync it and edit it together.
Excellent, good. Looking forward to it. Okay, so now we got to talk about some news, and we don't have a lot of great news.
We lost some legends in the past couple of weeks.
We absolutely did. It was about a week after we recorded, so right in the middle of our recording days, Stan Lee passed away at 95 years old. It's one of these things that we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Many of us were surprised it hadn't happened already. 95 is a very long life, especially for a man who was so active through those 95 years.
All the way till the end, really.
Yeah. I really, until the last few years, he finally started kind of backing away from the convention appearances and the interviews. But until 90, 92, so he was there. He would go to this San Diego to the Comic-Con and stuff. He'd show up at the screenings and the premieres. Amazing, just the amount of energy that was in what looked like a frail man. That's what I always loved about Stan Lee. He was always this real thin, frail-looking man, but just boundless energy.
Yeah. Boundless energy for his work, boundless energy for his fans, boundless energy for people who were, he wasn't working anymore. He was essentially just touring, but he still loved comics. He still loved comic book movies and comic book shows. I saw this one interview, I don't know when he gave it, but it wasn't that long ago, where he was talking about there would be many moments in his life where he would think, why am I doing this? What is this about? Deadlines, this and that. And then he'd get fan mail, or someone would stop him in the street, and he goes, that's why I kept doing this. That's why I keep loving this, because there's no good way I can describe how much I love my fans. And that's the side of him that I always really liked, because I won't get into it, but as a creator, I just wasn't seeing eye to eye with some of just his storytelling elements and his character decisions. But as a person, I don't think you could get any better.
Right, absolutely. Now, and I admit, when I tweeted it out, I need to like clarify or maybe apologize a little bit. I had thought that there was some issues among some of the other creators that he worked with, that they felt he was taking a lot of the credit. Really not the case. The more I read and more I read into it after his passing, I discovered that it was really a lot of the fans in the news that were glomming a lot of the credit onto him and ignoring people like Ditko and Jack Kirby. Yeah. And in fact, he was one of the first people to correct people. If you say, oh, well, you created this this character, and well, I created him with, and he would mention the other artists or the other writers that he worked with. I read one article that was saying a lot of that kind of the misnomer that he was the creator was simply that he outlived all the other guys.
Yeah.
And so he was the one that people could talk to. And so that was kind of the reason a lot of the credit ended up getting put on him, even if he wasn't the one claiming it. So sorry for my kind of odd, the odd way that I pass the news off on Twitter.
You learn.
Absolutely. Next time I'll learn to read a little bit more before trying to post right away.
Yeah, so the man that essentially created a whole universe, the day has come, and I follow a lot of different comic book and movie people on Twitter, and yeah, just even though everybody saw it coming, that didn't ease the shock at all. So hope his family's well, hope his friends are well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he will live on. I have a feeling that his cameos in Marvel movies won't end. If they do it right, there's going to be always going to be a photograph or something.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, something, a picture in the paper, a photo on the wall. Stan Lee will always be part of Marvel.
I'm wondering now, how long until the Stan Lee movie gets made?
Yeah, well, there's already talks. I've seen, I forget the name of the actor. There was an actor that actually had already threw his hat in the ring that he wants to star in a biopic.
I mean, I saw people making up posters with Bryan Cranston because there was some movie where some poster where Bryan Cranston already had the big sunglasses and a mustache, and someone they put the reflection of Captain America in one lens and Iron Man in the other, and it just said if you can't rule the world, create one. Stan Lee. So, how long until we get that movie?
I don't think it's going to be very long. I just hope it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You better not screw that one up.
No. And the other sad news that we have is the other legend that passed away was William Goldman.
Now, I have to admit, it was a name that I didn't immediately recognize. And it wasn't until I kind of sat down and started actually flipping through and went, oh.
He's written some of your most favorite movies.
Yeah.
Some of the best ones. He wrote, and he's written a lot of books and a lot of novels, and then he adapted those to the screenplays. So it's not even one of those he just wrote the movie. He didn't write the book. No, he did both.
Right.
So he wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He wrote the book and screenplay for Marathon Man. He wrote the book and screenplay for The Princess Bride, which I say is the most quotable movie of all time. So all of those lines are his. Any line that you love, that's the person that put it to paper. And he wrote so many others. He wrote Misery. He wrote Memoirs of an Invisible Man. He wrote Chaplin, Maverick. I mean, it just goes on, all of these great movies that he did.
And just to clarify what you say, he wrote the screenplays for a lot of these films, yes. Mm-hmm. That you haven't actually said that he wrote the book. He wrote the screenplays for these films.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, just the spectrum of work. It's so eclectic. I mean, there really was you couldn't pigeonhole him into a genre. Did I see the Stepford Wives, and then you go to Misery, and then Princess Bride, and then
which couldn't be more different.
Exactly, it's just opposite ends of the spectrum. That is what amazes me about any creator, whether it be a writer or director. Robert Wise, the director, I think it does the same thing for me. Is the fact that the movies that he directs, there's no pigeonholing him. Mm-hmm. Anything from horror to musicals to science fiction. It's really, I don't know. You don't see that much in today's writers and artists, I think, or directors. They kind of have a thing, and they typically do these types of movies. it's an art form in and of itself. It's an amazing gift these people had. Yeah, and Goldman I couldn't believe the breadth of work. Just amazing. So again, and he wasn't in his 70s, was he?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, 87. He was 87.
Oh, okay.
So he was definitely getting up there. So I don't know how many more pieces of work we would have gotten from the man, but he certainly has given us plenty, and he will definitely be missed and acknowledged, I think, in future. These are the films that are going to live forever, too, some of these movies. Like Princess Bride, like Misery, like Sundance.
Those are movies those are the kind of movies that when you find out someone hasn't seen it, you're like,
oh, you need to watch
You're
this.
watching this now. Yeah. And it's the writing. It's the acting, it's the directing, but it always starts at the writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely have to have something. The writing, that's the foundation.
Right. A bad script never becomes a great movie.
Right. You can put the best actor, which actually will tie into what we're going to talk about later. You can take one of the best actors, and if you don't have a decent script, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can sit there and say, well, he did the best he could with what he had.
Sure.
That's the best you can say. But all these films, just the scripts, the writing, the screenplays, absolutely phenomenal.
And I want to read this. This comes from Rob Reiner, the director of The Princess Bride. This was his statement on William Goldman's passing. He goes, "Losing Bill Goldman made me cry. My favorite book of all time is The Princess Bride. I was honored he allowed me to make it into a movie. I visited with him last Saturday. He was very weak, but his mind still had the Goldman edge. I told him I love you. He smiled and said, F you." I censored it, though.
Yeah, obviously. That is that is something. He was definitely obviously he had a bit of a wit and a personality to go with his talents. That's awesome. Yeah, again, best to his friends and family, and again, we will remember you for forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So, do we have any good news?
We have some news.
We have other news.
We have other news. Good is always subjective.
True.
So, speaking of Bryan Cranston, even though I don't know how involved he'll be, I don't know how much of a fan of, or how much you even saw of the show Breaking Bad.
I tried watching it. I'll admit it just really didn't grab me.
Okay. I absolutely love that show. And I got into it late. I think it was entering its last season, and I binged the whole thing inside a couple of weeks and then got to watch the last season. But they are now going to be making a TV movie that picks up where Breaking Bad left off.
Yeah, I did. I saw this with Vince Gilligan's involved and Cranston. So,
well, we don't know how much Cranston's going to be involved because, spoiler alert for you or for anybody else out there who still hasn't watched this show that ended quite a while ago now, his character dies in the final seconds of the last episode. But another character survives that no one was sure was going to survive. In fact, he was supposed to die in the last episode of the first season, but they loved Aaron Paul's acting so much that they decided, let Jesse live. And he lived all the way through. And so the plot is a man who had been taken prisoner is now on the run, which is his character. And I love Breaking Bad. I love the spin-off prequel Better Call Saul. It's all character-driven. It's nuanced. It does not care how much of it a crawl the plot has to move, so long as we get these little moments. And so when I heard they're making a Breaking Bad movie, I thought that might not be a good thing. But Vince Gilligan's involved. Okay, it's going to be a great thing. I texted my brother. I go, Vince Gilligan could tell a story about a hall monitor and find a way to make it an intriguing character-driven story. And he said, yeah, there'd be like a 4-minute montage of him putting on the vest and getting the whistle, and it would be the best 4 minutes of television that year. And I agree.
So you needed Vince Gilligan to say something like Mall Cop. That was a Paul Blart Mall Cop.
He could make anything
could have done it.
He's a brilliant writer. He understands that you move something along by asking yourself, well, if this is what character A does, how is character B going to react? And now how is character A going to react to that? And how are all the other characters going to react? And then before you know it, a script is written. And that's what they do. And if they're going to be working on this TV movie, I'm down for it because they know how to, at least for me, I'm in tune with that kind of writing. and I'm ready for it.
Yep. Now, I will say, I started watching it. My wife was a huge fan of Breaking Bad, and I started watching and trying to watch some of it, and it certainly wasn't to the fault of the writing or the acting. And I think it was more of, at the time, I just I don't want to get invested in this.
Okay.
And I think that was kind of really why I backed away, because I've got enough going on. I've got enough things on my plate and set to the DVR. I don't want to get invested in this. But I know the writing and the acting was incredible. So yeah, if they're involved, I think they could actually do something really good with this and keep the fans happy, because I guess Better Call Saul is done now too.
No, it's not done.
No, it's not done? Okay.
No, it just finished its 4th season. No one's really sure how many seasons it's going to go on for. Could go for a lot longer. It could wrap up in one more year, but it's definitely not done.
All right, interesting. Well, I'll keep everyone tuned in then anyway. Do you say it was going to be for a TV movie?
Yeah, they weren't sure. Originally, when reports came out, no one was sure what it would be, but then they said,
that's an AMC original, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I wonder if that ties in the same thing. I don't know if we talked about it last time, that they're talking about doing Walking Dead TV movies with the Rick Grimes character.
Oh, are those going to be TV movies? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the idea, is what I've read, is that they're going to be doing TV movies, but they were not leaving the thought of theatrical release out of the realm of possibility.
Sure.
But currently they're aimed at doing TV movies. So I'm wondering if that's kind of tied into that same, just AMC doing their own
shorter stories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. They're kind of setting up a whole new. You're gonna have AMC. I'm going to say
movies.
Yeah. It's AMC, the American movie channel, is actually going to branch off to a movie channel, and then the original
AMC 2.
Huh? Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
The Reckoning.
Yeah, remember when MTV played music videos? So it's going to be remember when AMC showed movies? Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So the other bit of news, this is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is still kind of in the rumor stage, at least that I read, but the studio Illumination, which does the Minion movies, is in talks to make a Super Mario Brothers movie.
But there already has been one.
We don't talk about that.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't. We talk about it as a warning. As a what not to do ever. Not just video game movies, but movies.
Fine.
But to me, I think that's a really perfect marriage, because Super Mario Brothers, I get, there's fans of all ages, but as a content, as what's on the screen when you play, every little thing has a smiley face. Mario walks up to something and it's got big black eyes and a big smile, and he picks it up and it's something that helps him to go fight something with big black eyes and a big smile.
Right.
So partnering up with a very kid-friendly studio, I think that's a great combination. I know there's a lot of mixed opinions on the Minions. I think they're hilarious. I couldn't sit through a whole movie.
Yeah.
But for 2 minutes, I think they're hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if that's what a Super Mario Brothers movie is going to look like, that's the kind of Super Mario Brothers movie that should be made.
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you're going to do one now, doing it in a form of animation is definitely the way to go.
And a silly, family-friendly kind of movie, too.
Yeah, exactly. Nope, interesting. I would not be surprised if they see that, if this does come about. And it's kind of one of those things that's going to be, why did it take this long?
Sure.
Look at the universe that the Super Mario games have created. The from the time the first game came out to the, all the way up to the Mario Karts, and there's so many characters, so many worlds. Really, no one thought we should make a film. I mean,
a lot of that has to do with how terrible that other Mario movie was, that Nintendo became very protective of its properties, which is why they even went through a long stretch of not really wanting to work with third-party companies to make some of their games. They've eased off on that thinking a little bit.
Took them a long time.
Yeah, they finally all right, let's get into mobile games and let's just have these other companies make our properties as games. Oh, it's not tanking like we feared it would.
Right.
And so they're kind of ready to get back into
or they were going to have
movies.
They were going to have to do something like that, because the game console days, I think, are numbered.
Yeah.
Nintendo was probably already losing ground to things like PlayStation. So they would. This had to be finally someone maybe stepping in and going, do you not see all that writing that's on that wall over there? Yeah, we needed to do something yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think they're just making smarter decisions rather than just saying, well, you take this and you take that, and it didn't go well. I think now they're really just having longer conversations. And like I said, I don't know if the movie's going to be any good, but I think this is probably the best opportunity to make it good.
Yeah, and it would certainly do wonders because, as we've seen from everything else, you make a film. If you make a game based on that film, you're gonna sell. You're gonna move product.
Yeah.
So now they have, not only can they make future games, they have all their past games that are tied into this movie. Yeah, they can move some product.
Yep.
Might save Nintendo from going the way of Sears and Toys R Us and all these other big names that have fallen out of just fallen out of the world.
Yeah.
So is that it?
That's it.
All right. So I think with that we will take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about a 1990s film, which is, have we even talked about a 1990s film before? It's been a while.
I feel like we must have.
So anyway, early 90s, 1992, the sci-fi film Freejack.
Hello, Christopher. What insanity are you up to today?
Oh, hey, Lydia. I'm downloading some movies.
What? People are always telling me that's illegal.
Not these. They're all public domain. Oh, look, Rescue from Gilligan's Island.
Well, let me see what you're doing. Oh, you're at archive.org. Well, they have thousands of films, TV shows, commercials, radio shows, and books available.
Yeah, but there are so many. I wish there was a podcast or something that would discuss these things. Give us an idea of what's worth the time.
Christopher, there is. We do one.
Oh, that's right. We host Orphaned Entertainment. Once a month, we pick something and review and discuss it. That sure is nice of us.
Sure. Why don't you click over to Orphaned Entertainment and remind yourself a little more about the show?
Oh, will do. Let's see, that's at orphanentertainment.com. And yeah, it looks like we're available on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Oh, hey, can we review the Gilligan's Island movie someday?
We'll see, Christopher. We'll see.
All right, Freejack, starring Emilio Estevez, Rene Russo, Anthony Hopkins, Jonathan Banks, speaking of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. What's his name? Isai Morales shows up, and of course, Mick Jagger.
Everyone's favorite actor.
Yeah, we kind of felt like after our last discussion on Runaway, we decided to stick with the rocker-turned-actor theme. And maybe those that shouldn't have done that. Freejack, 1992, a box office disappointment, apparently. From what I've seen, it was made for around $30 million and barely made 18 at the box office. That would be what we call a flop.
Mm-hmm.
It is about a man, a race car driver, played by Emilio Estevez, who is sort of time scooped into the future so that his body could be used as a vessel for a rich corporate elite to download his brain into Emilio Estevez's body in order to kind of gain his own a form of immortality. Of course, things don't go as planned, and Emilio Estevez ends up escaping. And, and we see the world, the far-flung future of 2009.
The future!
That I love when films, especially, you think they would learn, 1990s, they go to the future, but it's less than 20 years. Like, did you really think it was going to change that much?
Actually,
they got some things right.
They got some things right.
Or not necessarily right, but I could see where they were going.
I don't feel if I have a lot of issues with this movie.
Sure.
But how they envision the future was not one of them. because it's just sort of like, oh yeah, there's pollution and everybody's like, turned to drugs and you're either super rich or you're in the gutter.
Mm-hmm.
That's our present.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not all that far off.
It's going on right now.
They may have just been a little quick. I mean, maybe 40 or 50 years in the future.
There's a reason for that only 18-year, because it goes from 91 to 2009, so it's only an 18-year time jump. That plays into, there's a reason why, but what the future looks like, because there's still just people walking around, driving cars, using guns, using drugs. The most popular thing in town is like the whorehouse. It's not that far. It's like, there's no flying cars.
That's true.
There's no like press a button and there's your meal. There's still people who have to do all the stuff. There's no robots that do it all for you. Everybody has to go do it themselves.
I think it was more that when you talk about the super rich, they obviously have technology and stuff that hasn't come to pass or wasn't.
Or do they?
Yeah. They've got the stunner guns and the time scoop or whatever you want to call it.
That's the biggest part.
The strange design of the automobiles I thought was a little outrageous. It was kind of like, okay, we need a way to say that this is the future. Here's these crazy looking, they look like snails, limousine vehicles. Okay,
and that's the super rich that have those.
Right.
But I've seen cars with that kind of like bubble shape to it, and they're like $200,000.
Exaggerated,
right.
I guess.
But then you see like everyone else, and they're just like the cab drivers driving like a 1960s cab, things like that. So it's not that far off that you could see, like, because those other ones look like the electric cars. You don't really hear like a loud engine, so it's like what kind of we have that too.
All right, so maybe they just exaggerated it a little bit.
They did. They wanted to give it the future kind of look, and they really wanted to hammer home that this was a different time period. How they guessed didn't come to pass, but it wasn't so far off that you're just sort of like, what were you thinking?
Right. All right, fair enough. Yeah, I think, like you were saying, if they did like flying cars and matter transporters or something like that, we'd be like, no, you can't do this. But yeah, this is, I guess you could say that this was a potential 20 years in the future.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The rest of the movie
now
is where I have problems.
Yeah. Now, this is the first time watch for you.
Yeah.
This is the film that I saw probably when it first came to home video. Let's see, if it came out in 92, so we would have been talking about, it took usually about 6 months to a year before it'd show up on video stores. So,
although this bombed, it could have been out quicker.
Yeah, maybe. But so we're going to say 93 or 94 was probably when I first saw this film. So mid-90s. Now, I remember the first time I watched this, I remember thinking that this was an unappreciated, a fairly clever sci-fi that was maybe unappreciated. I remember that being my thought.
Okay, what's your thought now?
Well, I've watched it since then, but this would have been 2000, maybe 10-ish, maybe when I saw it, and I don't remember what I thought of it then. So this is the third time I've watched this film. I think there is still things there. I think there's a good movie in there somewhere, but it's just not quite there. And it's really hindered, and I have to say, this is the first thing, after watching it this time, the thing that bothered me the most was our star. Emilio Estevez is horrible.
Yeah.
He can't carry this film.
No.
If you had an actor that could actually act and not just be one note through the entire film, I think maybe you could have had something a little better. Mm-hmm. It certainly, and then you could edit, and if you could run this through the editing room one more time, I mean, this thing clocks in about an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
It does not need to be that long.
No.
Hour 20, hour and a half,
At
tops.
most.
Yeah. Those are the two things that really struck me this time watching is your star, your headline star, makes Mick Jagger look like an Academy Award winner.
There are moments where Mick Jagger, I'm like, all right, he's kind of menacing.
And we have moments of just obvious padding that don't need to be there, or little bits of story elements that's kind of like you could have dropped that.
Yep.
And shortened this film down to a reasonable time. And I think it would have been a little better. So first time watch, though, for you, you weren't impressed at all.
Not really. I agree with you that there's a good concept there, that this idea of, all right, we're going to take somebody the second before they die out of the past to give their body to the ultra rich so the ultra rich can keep living was a really cool concept that needed to be explored more. I wanted to see more of the world and not just Emilio Estevez going from action scene to action scene to action scene to the end of the movie. Like, that's all this was. And his character goes from, I'm just a Formula One race car driver to, yeah, give me the gun, I'll shoot them.
Yeah, I know exactly how to use this.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's another issue I had is they take this guy, they throw him out of time. They spend about 10 minutes with him like, oh, what is this? Where am I? And then after that, he's perfectly comfortable.
He's a freedom fighter. He's ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely a flaw in how this one's put together. Yeah, the film's based loosely, I think, on a Robert Sheckley novel called Immortality Incorporated.
Yep.
And I agree. We only see one instance of them scooping somebody and one character that's done this, but they make it sound like this is something that happens
every day.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about it.
There's laws, and these people don't have rights because they're dead, so they're property. They're just meat, or whatever that can be used for these purposes. So this has obviously been going on for a while, but you don't see any evidence of that in this world, in this film. And yeah, you kind of need a little bit of that. You need a little bit more than just this one time. Mm-hmm. You need somebody else that, oh yeah, I was jacked, or my body came from this. Mention something,
right?
Oh yeah, my body was on the Titanic. I mean, just some throwaway lines or something from some characters other than the ones that we see.
We should have seen like that's how the movie should have opened, like with somebody's mind being transferred into a different body. That way you can just be like, what the hell's going on here? And then when it's about to happen to him, you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
We needed some build up, some backstory. You should have seen like a whole facility that just churning people out left and right. You're just sort of like, this goes on everywhere. Like, does everybody have a different body? Like, what's really happening? It would have been cool if he bumped into somebody and he's like, wait, I know you. And they're like, oh, I'm not who you think I am because your friend died. Your friend died 5 years after you did. Right.
Yeah. And that's where I would think it actually would have been more interesting if they could have taken this further into the future and actually do like literally an entire cast change. They make Renee Russo, they try to make her look 20 years younger by giving her a ponytail.
Right, yeah, they don't age her at all.
And then 20 years later, she looks exactly the same, except now her hair's curly.
Shorter and curlier. That's what happens when you get older.
But how about, let's just say this time scoop technology or whatever, or this transference is something that people do, so throw it 50 years into the future, have the only one that from 1991 to go to 2000 whatever it is, be the main character, and he meets up with what he turns out to be his fiance from 91, but she's in a different body.
Sure.
Make it look like part of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, you really start to think he's the only one.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about this, but he's the only one.
Right. Yeah, like I was saying, Emilio Estevez is probably just, he can't carry the film. No. I mean, he was kind of like at his height, I guess, here. Because he had come off a Breakfast Club, he'd come off of Young Guns, or was it Young Guns 2? Maybe both, I don't know. So he was kind of like at the height of the career, so definitely putting his name on the poster was probably enough of a draw to try to get people in, but it wouldn't have taken long for people to sit there and go, yeah, this isn't for him.
I almost wonder if Charlie Sheen would have been a better pick.
Yeah, really. One of the other Estevez boys.
I could also see like Harrison Ford doing this movie and doing it well. Mm-hmm. It's not really his style of movie, but like I could almost see like Robert Redford being in this role and doing a better job.
I think just about anybody else would have done a little
Anyone
bit
else
better
with a
job.
pulse.
Yeah. And then casting Mick Jagger, who kind of did it because I think he just had a brand new album come out, so it was kind of like piggybacking on that. His name was in the news. He was, put him on the poster too. People were going to see it for Mick Jagger. And first of all, his
character's all over the place.
It is all over the place. It's not even really much of a character. He kind of just shows up. He walks around trying to look menacing. He throws out a one-line or two, and then he disappears for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that just repeats throughout the course of the film, which is unfortunate because I actually think he has some of the best lines.
He does have some good lines.
He has some good lines. I think my favorite is at one point when Alex Furlong is the character that Emilio Estevez's character. He escapes by jumping off the Brooklyn Bridge, and
if you drink any of that, I won't get paid.
Yeah, if you drink any of that, I'm out of a job. I think that was pretty good. He has some great moments, but they're supposed to sort of build up like they're supposed to have some sort of almost a mutual respect for each other because
it's so forced.
It is so forced.
It is shoved in there.
And maybe again, if you had better actors, that could have actually conveyed that a little bit,
or given time to it. Like cut out one of your fights and action scenes and actually have them have moments together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Emilio Estevez has the opportunity to kill Mick Jagger's character, and he doesn't do it. And then these other mercenaries show up, and so he saves Mick Jagger's character, and then Mick Jagger's all like, "Oh, I'll give you a 5-minute head start." I'm like, why would you do that?
Right.
You don't look at that as a weakness. Like, this is your job. This is your reputation. This is your paycheck is on the line, and you're going to give him a 5-minute head start?
And again, this is a problem with the plot here is by that point, Estevez has said, I need to go to the source. I need to find out who's doing this. I need to confront him. I need to, whatever. So, well, here's the guy. We'll take you right to him. And you run. And you end up just going, you find out who it is, and you end up going to him anyway. So it's like, we could have cut out, there's 20 minutes right there. We could have cut out. Just let Mick Jagger take you in. You would have been face to face with the guy that's doing this, and then we can move on.
Right. Yeah. It's like they wanted these moments to show up, and they just wanted to keep telling you that this is what was going to happen. But then they didn't earn that. It's just sort of like, oh, they like each other now, kinda.
Right.
Nah.
Yeah, for some reason.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. I was going to have the character names. Mick Jagger.
You got Emilio
Back-and-Deck.
Victor Vacendak.
Vacendak.
Rene Russo is Julie Redland. Jonathan Banks is Mark
Michelet.
Michelet.
Jonathan Banks is Michelet.
Michelet. Yeah. And then you got Anthony Hopkins as Ian McCandless.
Yes.
Who didn't see him coming as the bad guy?
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
The moment he was on screen, I was like, there's our villain.
That horrible hairpiece or whatever he was wearing pretty much sold me as him being definitely bad. Pretty awful. Yeah, the reason that he wants... And it turns out there's a reason why he wants Furlong's body in particular. Yep. And
again, it doesn't really work.
It doesn't work, and it doesn't matter.
No. So, yeah, it's because he knows... Because Rene Russo's character of Julie is one of, the higher-ups in his company. And unbeknownst to her, he's fallen in love with her. Rather than ask her on a date, he figures, I'll take the body of that guy in her life who died, and I'll take it over, and then she'll fall in love with me. Okay. That's character motivation.
Doesn't sound creepy at all. I'm sure she'd be fine with that.
Right. I mean, it could have been like, I can save him and give him to you. Do you like me now? You could have done so many other things other than I'm going to show you the face of your dead fiance. Do you love me? This doesn't work no matter how deluded you are.
No, that is definitely some sort of sign of insanity, and even the insane have better thought processes.
Yes, you can get a much better idea from a crazy person than that.
But the only thing I really kind of liked is the fact that there were other forces involved that didn't want McCandless to be transferred. So we
Yeah.
got the Michelet character who's kind of working behind the scenes, and they actually kept that hidden through a good portion of the film. There was suddenly you don't know why the caravan was struck in the beginning. Why were where did these guys, where did the information come from that they knew they were going that way? Who are these guys that are trying to, using live ammo and not stunners, that are trying to kill Furlong? You don't really know why that's happening until fairly far into the film before you realize that Michelet is, working against him, because he knows that if Candless goes, or McCandless, it's a horrible last name. I don't know where
it is. The writing, the names are terrible.
If he's gone, he becomes head of the company.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want this transfer to happen.
That's actually another one of the little things that I thought was kind of clever, because McCandless does die, but pretty much that's how the movie opens. Like, he's dead, and his mind has been uploaded to a computer, but you only have 3 days until the mind gets lost in the computer and you can't recover it. I like that idea, that limitation. Like, it's set in the future, but it's not perfect in our technology. Right. That someone thought of that. And that, again, goes to, I would have loved to have seen more of the world, because somebody thought, it's not, we just put him on a disc and we're just waiting to get the body. The disc will be there forever. Because I've seen other sci-fi movies do that, where it's like, zip, we've just uploaded the mind and we can preserve it here forever. But instead, there's a limitation. Right. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, because, you'll get defragged and...
Yeah.
No, I like that, but it's a little bit of a shame that time, that time frame was set to the bad guy. That's almost the type of thing where, the hero has to do this in that amount of time or something. Of course, then you start looking into things like Lawnmower Man or something. It would change the film entirely. Because you have to live inside that world, I guess. But still, they don't make a huge point of that there's this end date. There's this time limit. It just sort of gets mentioned in passing a little bit here and there, but no one seems real earnest about it.
Yeah.
Including the hologram of McCandless. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, probably about an hour or so. And really?
Can we move it? I'm about to die.
Yeah. No one has any earnestness about it at all. That seems odd. I like that aspect, but it's just odd that no one really seems to care.
Right. Even when he's trying to con Julie, he's not really putting a lot of effort into it. He's like, is he with you now? She's like, no. He's like, okay. Maybe trace her call, tell her to stay there, that you'll send someone to help them?
Anything?
Instead of another firefight at the docks?
Right. Yeah. No, unfortunately, yeah, exactly. We want to hit the 2-hour mark, and so this is what we have to do. I'm not sure why they felt the need to stretch this film out as long as they did. This just seems like the kind of film that a studio head would have sat there and watched and went, can we cut this part out? Can we cut out all the CGI weird mind stuff at the end? Because
that was weird.
That's 2-3 minutes. It's like, could we cut that? Do we need that?
Well, I was reading that the test screenings went terrible and that they actually ordered a ton of reshoots.
Right.
Which, because the movie in the past is set in 1991. That's when it was supposed to come out. Comes out in 92 because of all the reshoots, and that even Emilio Estevez was trying to push for more character moments, and that the director was like, no, more action. And that's how you got, or was it the director? Maybe it was even the writer, because I really think that this movie was the kind of like the brainchild of Ronald Shusett, one of the writers. And that he was the one who he was also one of the producers, and he was the one who was really pushing for a lot of things. But I think also the director was like, no, more action.
Well, I do wonder, I can see Emilio Estevez sitting there, I want more character moments, but I wonder if there was anyone going,
he can't act.
Yeah, he can't, you can't, they just didn't want to say, yeah, but you can't do those. That's not going to help. So yeah, we better go for the action. I will say, though, as far as action scenes go, they're not bad.
They're not bad. There's just too many of them that just do the same thing over and over again.
I think that's the thing that I had forgotten is how much. I mean, it was a fairly big budget film, And it does show. I mean, the budget is on the screen. It's not one of these movies where they spent this much. Where was it? It's there. It's on the screen. It looks good.
There's nothing to go with it.
Yeah. It's a little unfortunate. Like you, I like the premise. I like the idea. There's more there. Other films, I think, have done that idea maybe a little better. Certain other books. There was another book called Millennium. I don't remember the author. It was actually turned into a film too, but I think, again, the star power in it, I think Chris Christopherson might have starred in it. But it was the same premise. It was sometime a little bit further in the future, I think. But they could look back and go, well, this airline is going to go down and all hands are lost. And so they would time scoop all the people off the plane and then be able to use their bodies. But it was a little bit more gruesome. They were effectively using them for organs and body parts. It wasn't transferring your mind. It was, by that time, the earth had been so poisoned, you're constantly dying of one failure or another. So they didn't have any good hearts or lungs or livers. So they were harvesting our bodies from the past. That's more interesting. And that they definitely plays more into the film or into the story than it does in this.
Yeah. Not a new concept.
And yeah, it's been done a little better in other things, I think. It almost felt like this one was an afterthought. It was just sort of, we got to get them there. We're not going to put a lot of effort into this. We'll just do it, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't matter after that.
And it should have. It just would have been cool if, like, he walks by, like, some building that just says, it's like, new you. Like, things like that. Just make it part of it. Because the other thing with this movie is it has all of these moments that are supposed to be twists and, things that you didn't see coming, but you're sitting there going, like, I saw that coming. Like, I know that's the bad guy, and I know that this is the guy who's trying to betray them, and I know this is where it's heading, and thank you for the paint by numbers, and I could tell that it was a bunny rabbit. Like, you didn't have to actually paint it in.
They also, and again, this is kind of one of these things where there are times where it's like they didn't try hard enough with the script, and there's other times where it's kind of like they actually put some thought into that aspect of the story. There's a moment when they realize, after they scoop Furlong and the caravan's attacked, which allows Furlong to escape and everything. Well, somebody had to have told them which direction they were going to set up this kind of an ambush. So someone from the inside, we don't know who yet, someone from the inside has to have been passing information. So Benedict is there with S.M. Morales' character, Ripper, in their little plush, weird office. And they've got like the lie detector computer or whatever. And he makes Ripper test. You use the machine, and Ripper's offended. I can't believe I've never done this. I can't believe you'd ask me. And he's like, I'm not questioning you. I'm testing the machine. And he's like, test everyone else. Like, oh, I mean,
they don't use it again.
That never comes up. But that's how they kind of work in the fact that this is an inside job and that we have to do something about it.
But then they don't. They don't really look into it anymore.
Or they don't look into it that high up. They're assuming it's someone on their level and not someone, second in command of this corporation or something.
But I almost think that could have been a better movie if Visendak is the kind of character who's like, all right, I'm going to stop chasing this guy because I have to stop who's getting in my way first. And if he just kept taking it higher and higher and higher until he realized that it's this Michelet guy, and then he deals with him, and then somewhere in that he starts to have that what am I really doing here? Like, why am I chasing this guy down?
Yeah.
That would have explained his change of heart.
You wanted him
so much better.
You wanted him to be more of a detective.
Yes.
And not just
some hired gun.
The hired gun, which is what he is. I mean, he finds out when we find out, and it's kind of like, oh, okay. And then he acts, based on what's going on at the time. But yeah, you wanted him to actually to be an investigator. And again, it's Mick Jagger, so maybe it's better that it wasn't. But you wanted that character to be the investigator.
Yes. And I think that would have definitely improved the movie. But then you even get to the part where they're going to do the mind transfer and only a few seconds go by and Julie grabs a gun and shoots the machine, and then I'm just sitting there going oh, he's going to pretend that he's McCandless and everyone's going to fall for it. But the part that really got to me was when they're like, have him recite his ID number. Only McCandless would know it. And then he's just standing there and he's trying to think of a number. And then he just goes, 6. And then there's a really long pause. And I'm like, was it one more digit? Is his ID number a single digit? And I started laughing. I was like, it would be great if that was his whole ID number. And then he's like, and then Mick Jagger's like, okay. Keep going. So far, so good.
Right.
I was like, oh, there's more. Okay, because there's like a good 10 seconds of no one responding.
Again, can we shorten that a little bit? There's 30 seconds. So we've got about 3 minutes of CGI stuff. There's another 30 seconds. We're bringing it down.
But then you find out that wasn't the number at all. That Mick Jagger is thinking like, well, my boss is dead, and I'm not. This guy doesn't want to hire me. I'll save this dude. And I just kept thinking, like, he's in on it, and this just can't be the... Unless then I was also thinking, well, maybe the ID number is that number that...
That he was keying into the pad.
That maybe it was that, and he remembered it, and I'm sitting there like, I don't even remember it.
Yeah, right. I didn't see it long enough, no.
But, yeah, it's kind of a clever-ish thing, but you see it coming. You're just waiting for them to do the reveal, and that Michelette's character dies, and now the whole world thinks that Emilio Estevez is McCandless. And so he gets to be like the richest person on earth. But instead of like, say, I'm going to shut down the stealing people from the past, he's just sort of like, I'm driving a car.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. This is another one of these things where you think the story that came before and the story that comes after is more interesting than the story that we're forced to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you want to know what happens in the future now. What kind of changes does he make? Does
he go back and help the nun that helped him?
Yeah, exactly. I like that nun. Amanda Plummer was the actress.
Great. She's probably the best one in the whole movie.
I love the, I think it was, Michelette that's interrogating her. He gives her a good slap, and the Lord says to turn the other cheek, and then she kicks him right between the legs. Like, but he never had to deal with dickheads like you.
Wow. I wonder though if she's dead, because there she is in his office. She's just done that to him. Like, there's probably a bullet in her head now. But I want to imagine that she's alive, because her character was phenomenal. Yeah,
that was pretty awesome. Yeah, there's lots of characters in this film that you do like. Even the bum he comes across on the side of the dock, who's kind of spouting sort of almost poetry or philosophy or whatever.
About the eagle.
That's how he's credited too, is like Eagle Man. That's how he's credited. He's interesting.
Julie's bodyguard is really interesting.
Very, absolutely. Those people, because they're actually really good actors, they've got interesting roles. It only highlights how poorly the casting was for Emilio Estevez and Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate.
It was like a 12-year-old boy cast those two roles. I want Mick Jagger and the guy from The Breakfast Club.
Yeah. I can't help but think that this film would have been a little better. I'm not going to say it would have fixed it, but it would have been better with better stars.
Yeah. Did you also notice it was this kind of like interesting thing? Again, would have liked to have known more about it, but how there was all of like this like Japanese imagery and stuff going on. Like he's walking around and there's like Japanese text on the wall and like lithographs on the wall, and Julie's bodyguard has the sword, like a samurai sword. Right. And there's a part where they're dealing with like the Japanese businessmen. You wonder if this is like a future where like Japan has a bit of a foothold in America. And so a lot of their culture has come over.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be a new concept either for some of these, sci-fi films. Well,
right.
Again, you go back to like Blade Runner,
right?
Who very much had an Asian influence in that future with the advertisements, the way people dressed, everything. So.
But it doesn't get mentioned. It's just sort of there.
Yeah, it's just
the part where the bodyguard's walking around with the sword. I even said out loud, "Is that sword coming into play, or is he just holding it?"
Barely.
Yeah, right. He kills a guy that was already half dead, and then he dies.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, where was my sword fight? I guess they couldn't afford to have like a sword fight choreography, but I was waiting for a friggin' sword fight.
It's just another one of these movies where you want to play with it because like, okay, there is a good concept here. There are good actors here. Just can I just tweak this? Can I just turn this a little bit? Tell Emilio, go sit down over there. Let me just talk to this person over here. That's what makes it frustrating for me, because you're watching the film and it's frustrating because you're like, damn it, there's a good movie here. Yeah. It's just not the one I'm watching.
This is one of those movies that we've talked about before. This would make an excellent reboot. Yeah. Remake this today. Better writing, better actors, better everything.
Or because of the concept, the Freejack concept, or the time scoop, or whatever you want to call it, again, it would make a series. Yeah. You could do a series on this.
Yes.
And then you could definitely play in that body came from the 1800s. That body came from 2012. And you could play with that.
Yeah.
And you could do that. Oh my God, isn't that so-and-so that act? No, that's not him. Yeah.
Right, you could have all these like fun celebrity cameos.
Oh my God, it's Elvis!
Right. Yeah, you could do all of that stuff, and it's just like, no, that's just that person's body now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Celebrity cameos.
Yeah,
that is. You're right.
Just, like a scene or two here or there.
Yeah, that looks just like Buddy Holly. Yeah,
it is. Well, it was.
It was.
Now it's Jim.
Yeah,
he's CEO.
Yeah, no.
You could see things like bidding wars, like, people trying to be like, no, I want that person's body. You don't get to have it. And then they go into like a bidding war for like who gets to be whoever.
Yeah, and you could also explain, too, they give you the impression that the transference usually leaves people in a sorrier state.
Yeah.
First of all, when Emilio first shows up, or Furlong, whatever his character shows up, he's dead, and they have to resuscitate him. He's got a flat line. But then they're surprised that he's still got brain function.
Right.
So you get the impression that maybe the transference takes a lot out of the body, and normally it leaves you brain dead or near about. And so you could explain that a little bit more in a series, or why does it work? Why does it, it happen more often than not now? Or why did it happen before? Why do we have this person conscious now?
Or they could have saved themselves a lot of trouble and just be like, okay, we've resuscitated them. Now we have to zap them. But before the zap is when they get attacked, which I know is what they were going to do, but they could have cut out the whole, they're supposed to be brain dead. Like, well, why did he survive? Just cut all of that out and just be like, we didn't get to the next step because of the attack.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's the pulse. Let's wrap him up. And then he wakes up and says something, and like, he's got brain function.
Just cut all that out.
Yeah, just eliminate that. Don't even mention it. Yeah, and then just go straight to we need to zap him to wipe his brain or something.
Right.
Or just, sedate him.
Right.
Yeah, don't even do just sedate them. Just,
they don't get to.
Yeah, and then they don't get to it because they're attacked. Mm-hmm. That would have worked a little bit better than suddenly leaving me with questions about, like, well, why does that happen?
Right.
Are they usually brain dead?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. And the other part that I did like is how they pluck people from time, but they can't move them through space. So, like, you have to go to the site of their death.
I did like that.
So you could even see things like where, like, okay, if they did pull everybody, like, off of the Titanic, they've got to be out in the ocean to do it.
True, good point.
Oh, you want to get Buddy Holly? You've got to be up in the air to catch him. Like, things like, well, where? Okay. Like, things like that. That could be, or if you just want to cut that out and just be like, no, we've teleported them.
Right.
Either way, like for a series to save time, it's like, they just get teleported to some facility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd probably definitely have to do a little shortcutting if you were going to do a series.
Or you could say like, it used to be we had to be there in the area where they died, but now we have this technology where we can just pull them.
Or they can send out some drone that sits there and shoots the little lasers and
catches them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all right.
It would make a good series. Like, season 1 is like, him realizing what the world is and he's on the run. Season 2 is realizing, like, he's got to find who the bad guy is. And then, like, season 3 is him living as that person. Just 3-season show.
Yeah.
Have a bunch of fun celebrity cameos.
Or throw in that, that season where, either it happens and he lives the life that he's, the fake McCandless or whatever. But have them, make the changes, or turn him into the freedom fighter. So maybe
Something.
McCandless dies, and the corporation's in turmoil, and so he finds that there's an underground of other escaped Freejacks or something like that, and there's more you could do with this.
So much more.
This. I guess what I'm coming away from this watch is frustration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said,
if it's a series, who's your lead? Who's your Freejack?
Don't even ask me. I'm terrible at that. Absolutely terrible when it comes to the cast.
Anybody.
I can never think of anybody. I can
can't
never
think of anybody?
I can never think
unknown,
of a
just
person
want some
named.
unknown.
I always want to see someone new. Whenever a new series comes out or anything, I want someone I haven't seen before.
Who do you want then as your McCandless? Who's your old guy? Because I know who I would want just for the humor of it.
Just for the humor of it.
Yeah.
The old guy. I would want someone that actually looks like. I mean, they gave Anthony Hopkins when he's maybe in his 50s or something at this point in the 90s. I don't know how old he is now, but he wasn't that old. But they say, he died of a virus, so he looks healthy.
Yeah.
So I would like to see someone actually looking like they were going to kick off and die.
Some very old person.
Some very old actor.
Just because I couldn't help myself, I'd want to see William Shatner in that role.
Yeah, why not?
I would love to see him playing Sinister.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You know who I just saw the other night? And again, it was one of these things where I honestly wasn't. If you had asked me, I would have assumed he had passed away. I saw Louis Gossett Jr. on Hawaii Five-0. And I thought, that's it. I mean, he's definitely getting up there. He's older, and everything. And like, this guy comes on and he says a line. I'm like, man, that sounded like Louis Gossett Jr. It's like reading the credits. That's Louis Gossett Jr. That's awesome.
He's alive.
He's alive and he's acting. I thought that's really cool. Just talking about an older actor that you didn't think was there that would, I think he could actually do it. He was kind of doing it as sort of a comedic role on Hawaii Five-0, but I think he still has it in him to be dramatic and could be menacing if he needed to be. So there's something. There's someone right there.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Anything else you want to say about Freejack?
I'll probably never watch it again.
I don't know if I'm going to either now.
There were several times where I kept pausing just to see how much time was left, and I was like, oh, God, this still has like an hour left.
Yeah, I have to admit, after this viewing, I don't know if it's one I would go back and view again unless it comes up again as some sort of podcast topic, maybe on another show or something like that.
Just to refresh yourself.
Yeah, I don't think I'd watch it again because it's just so frustrating. I know there's absolutely nothing I can do about it to make it better. Because it happened 30 years ago. Well, before we go, we did get a letter from Floyd titled The Abyss. Another good podcast and great discussion. I must say, however, that Matt is odd. He doesn't like the Terminator or Aliens? Really? Does he even know what a good film is?
Yes.
Well, I guess everyone is entitled to their own opinion, no matter how twisted said opinion may be.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm saying all this in jest. I appreciated what you guys said about The Last Jedi. I really enjoyed the film and was very surprised at how many people hated it, including several of my friends. They had expressed anger at what the producers had done to Star Wars. I didn't get it. I liked it. One thing some didn't like was that the hotshot pilot who went on his own actually made things worse. They've gotten so used to the plot line of the hotshot knowing more than his commanders that they didn't like it when the hotshot screwed up. I, for one, found it refreshing.
I did, too.
Sometimes those in charge actually do know what's best. With Matt's reporting of bots spreading bad comments makes me wonder how many of those of my friends read instead of forming their own opinions. Says, I like discussion on The Abyss. I'm with you. The extended version is definitely the way to go. So he titles it The Abyss. Doesn't have much to say about The Abyss, but he does have a lot to say because we were talking about the news. You were talking about the bots that had come on and were spreading, kind of starting arguments over The Last Jedi. So, yeah, interesting. All right, well, thank you very much for writing in, Floyd. If any of you want to write in, that's what I didn't give out at the beginning of the show is the address. you can write to timeshifterspodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, join any discussions that are going on over on the Facebook group. And, again, follow us at Twitter, at timeshifterspod, at Movies at the Mat, and definitely tune into Matt's other podcast, Season 14, Time for a Podcast, which I just got a notification that an episode dropped as we recorded. That's going to do it for us, I think. We actually know what we're going to talk about next time. This actually came up. The Moose movie came up as an answer to a trivia question on one of these like 80s trivia day calendars at work. And I realized I didn't know anything about the film, never saw it, don't know anything, didn't know about it. And people at work started talking about it. I'm like, well, this sounds like exactly the kind of movie I would watch.
And it's funny because days ago, another podcast I'm listening to is talking about it, and I was thinking, like, this would be a good discussion for us, especially if Christopher's never seen it. And then you posted about it 2 days later, and I was like, yep, we are going to watch this movie.
So it was a movie that I put in a request at the library to have it shipped down from wherever it came from. I think it came out of Akron or something like that. So we're going to discuss The Last Dragon.
Yes, I am so excited.
I'm excited to see this thing.
Have you watched it yet?
I've not watched it yet.
Oh, yes.
I've not watched it yet. I'll be watching it over the next couple weeks, at least once. Everything I've heard people talk about it makes me think I'm just going to absolutely love this. So it should be an interesting film. It should be an interesting discussion. So yeah, definitely tune in a couple weeks for The Last Dragon. Going to be fun. Okay, that is going to do it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will talk to you then. Bye, all.